right, y'all. We got another banger for you. This is season 4, episode 3. Otis, I know you score, man. How you feeling?
Well, how am I feeling mentally? How am I feeling physically? That's a big difference because today's episode, the audience is in for a real treat, man. You know, what I want to do is, man, I want to jump right to it without any anticipation. Jeff, about a week ago, what happened? Where were we?
About a week ago, man, we were dying.
Yeah.
Point blank, I can't say any other way. It was a rough 3 days, man. It was a rough 3 days.
It really was. So audience, we I don't want to make this long drawn out soliloquy, but you know, as entrepreneurs, we always try to find ways to raise the standard and raise the bar, and that can be in every area, you know. And just about a week ago, we're recording this on a Friday, and the previous Friday we went up to a co-founder of our firm that we would belong to. He will remain nameless, by the way. Shout out to him. But we visited a co-founder's ranch, and he put us through a 3-day brutal military type intense. I don't even want to call it a workout. I think it was just a test of being a man in today's society. And we got so many different levels of exposure and just truth, man. And what we want to do is have a little bit of conversation about that and detailing some of the things that we found out about ourselves.
Sure.
Detailing those 3 days that we were up there, right? So point us in the right direction, Jeff, with, you know, some of the, again, everybody can't get all of the details because we're not at liberty to discuss, because there's a lot of our listeners who are anticipating this opportunity. But Jeff, as close as you can, walk us through some of the things that we experienced, maybe from the start of the idea of thinking it was going to be a great time, hanging out with the co-founder and many other organizations. People are like, oh yeah, I get to hang out with the co-founder. And then we go out there and our life is just flipped upside down.
Well, I'm gonna keep it real. I knew we were screwed when we saw some mountains on the far side of the freeway, and we turned toward those. Those mountains. Once we were heading that direction, I was like, oh, "This is gonna be rough." And somehow, some way, we found ourselves deep within those mountains. Did you guys know people actually own those mountains? Like,
yep.
Dude, this whole time I thought like that was like the state of California. No, people own that, and we got to experience it. And I'll never, whenever someone says, "Do you want to go on a hike?" I don't think I'll ever take it the same.
No,
never.
No, not a chance. Because over 3 days, everyone, I want you to do some math here. That's 3 days of 72 hours, and 72 hours, as we lay the foundation and the groundwork for our conversation, we had 6 hours of sleep. We hiked 30 miles, and these 30 miles wasn't on flat terrain. Sure. We were physically climbing mountains. We were being instructed by the top military leaders of the free world, from the Navy, what do they call it? The Army Raiders or Marine Raiders?
Marine Raiders. Yeah.
Marine Raiders.
Yeah.
And it was the most intense. By the way, if you're listening to this, go to 4 minutes and 15 seconds of the YouTube, and I want you to look at the seriousness on my face right now. Yeah. It was the worst and the best thing that I've ever experienced. And today's conversation is going to be shaped completely around that. And the title and the topic is going to be around conquering self-doubt. And when I tell you, we all have it. I don't care how good you think you are, dude. I don't care listen, I fly high. Jeff is a pretty highly confident guy. But when you are put against these pressure cooker situations, boy, do you find out a lot about yourself and the people that surround you, right? So So let's walk through, Jeff, transforming this fear and how do
Mhm.
we turn it into fuel? Because we encountered and endured 3 brutal days of climbing mountains. I mean, we're talking 2,000, 3,000 feet straight elevation and climbing different terrain and sleeping outside, which
Yeah.
both you didn't sleep out. You've never like camped or slept outside
Hell
before, right?
no, man.
It had to be some of the hardest things. It was definitely the hardest thing, especially last Friday.
Mhm.
This day, Friday,
This day.
a week ago.
Can you? So I want to stop you. Can you believe exactly a week ago we were dying? A week later, we're doing a podcast. I'm so grateful for this podcast, by the way, because I mean, let's get into the podcast because one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is that inner voice. Last Friday, my inner voice inside him was telling me, "You're done, bro. You're cooked. Like you can't go any further. If they have you do one more, insert the blank here, it's a wrap for your body." And let me tell you something. Sitting here right now, saying this on the podcast, you know what it tells me, Otis? That your inner voice is full of shit. It's full of it, bro. Absolutely. How did you feel last Friday, man? What
You
was the
said
inner
it.
voice telling you?
My inner voice was telling me to quit, and I want everybody to listen to this. One day, we did a combination of walk, run, jog, approximately 8 miles. And these 8 miles were us being led by a guy who was an absolute legend who protects our country. And we were being guided through this tough terrain to be able to basically make a mission. And prior to the mission, there was lots of things we had to do. We had to, gosh, I don't even want to like, we had to do some really unique things that only the military would describe as probably easy, but for regular civilians, it was really hard. So when it came to, that inner voice, I think one of the things that I had to deal with was doubting the lie that was in my head because
Mm.
most of the time I thought that this voice was protecting me, right? Telling me to do things. And what I realized with that voice telling me to continue to play small and telling me I wasn't ready to step up or I was going to burn out here, I felt like a fraud, man.
Mm.
I just be so transparent with our audience. And I feel like I owe that to anybody I call as a friend. I felt like a fraud. But I want to tell you the thing that I found out was that in order for us to complete mission, we're 8 miles at one point. That's not even including some of the other things we had to do, climbing down the hill, going to go and have essentially a war on a raft on top of a lake with some of our other great teammates, which was insanely like impossible to do. But when we were going through this and I wanted to quit, guys, and I don't know where you are in life or when things get hard, but there's gonna be this doubt button that comes in. And most of the times we give into it. You have to respond with a voice out loud. And what I was able to do with that voice is say, watch me. Like, watch me. And I don't know where it came from. There was one other 2-letter phrase that I cannot repeat because this is kind of a PG-13 podcast.
Oh, my bad
But
about cussing earlier.
yeah, no, you're good. We got to get that out sometimes, right? But I promise you, there's going to be lots of lies, right? In life, being a mom, being a dad, being a companion to somebody else, right? The enemy's job is to kill, steal, and destroy and create that doubt. And these are one of the things that, man, where I wanted to give up. And I'm not a quitter, you guys, by any means. But Jeff, when you were going through that, like how much of you, percentage wise, wanted to quit? And how much of you did you need to overcome the majority of the percentage that wanted to quit?
150% of me wanted to quit. Like there wasn't a percentage in my body left that didn't want to quit because I physically felt like my body was gonna quit on me. Right? That's how exhausted I was, and yeah, that voice in my mind was definitely there. It was definitely there. I remember just kind of being there on Friday and just thinking, I only got to get through half a day more right now. Like if I can just push through this, I get to go see my wife. I get to go see my daughter. And I'll be very frank with you. The only thing that got me through that time was thinking, I'm going to go back to Liz and Leilani, and we're going to have a good dinner. We're going to lay down in that bed, and we're just going to relax. It's all going to come. And in the moment, my feet's hurting. My feet's wet. I didn't know your quads could cramp, bro. Your quads can cramp, by the way. I don't know if I don't think I've told you this. I'm going to share it on this podcast. My left quad to this moment is still numb.
Oh, that's believable.
Yeah,
that's believable. Because, so again, if you're just tuning in and maybe you fast forwarded to this point, Jeff and I, with it was a group of 10 men, we went out to go get tested by outside influences that would transform us, not just from the external, but turn us into different men on the internal. And over a 3-day period, we had to hike a total of 30 miles. Not just hike, it was an assortment of different challenges. Day one, we had to go out and find and set up camp in pitch black with, by the way, pretty cool opportunity. We had some night vision goggles. That was like pretty darn cool, right?
I was like, I'm gonna give me a pair of these until they said how much they cost. 15.
like 13 grand for one. But you look at that and all of the fear that was inside of that and the trepidation that we had about crossing creeks in the middle of the night when there's all sorts of stuff that's out there. I don't know if you know, Jeff and I, we're on the prettier side of men. And
can I add to that?
Go for it.
One of the people we know, okay, he was like, I really wondered how you and Otis were gonna do because you guys are pretty. I was like, well, we here, man, we back. So you're right on spot with people thinking we pretty, man.
It's so funny because throughout all of this, being drained down to nothing when it comes to sleep, I mean, complete exhaustion, and then having to go down a hill, go back up a hill, and do this in a certain amount of time, and do this what we would call extracurricular activity. If you guys are not familiar with that, I think you guys who are in the military,
you don't want to be familiar with that.
Yeah, you'll understand that. And these are guys who are not used to this. When we go through this, let me tell you something that also sets into your mind is something called fear, right? So we have classically heard that, okay, fear. Let me just get the corny line out. That fear has two meanings. The first meaning is false evidence of things appearing real. And then the second meaning that you could take from it is face everything and rise. That is easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Because when it comes to fear can either fill a tank or it can reduce the fuel in the tank, or it can give it some fuel to a tank. And fear for me generally means that you're growing because you're in an uncomfortable situation. And Jeff, before I pass it over to you, I just want to tell everybody that what I learned is that fear isn't the enemy. It's our body's alarm by saying that this matters and I need to pay attention right now. Because if you don't understand what fear does, fear like gives you an edge, because it's like facing the boogeyman. When you like see something that you think is incomprehensible or impossible, and when you conquer it, that is where growth is going to extend itself. So as you were going and we were in absolute fear moments, like day 2, basically we're falling off of a mountain or rappelling off of a mountain, which was, oh man, I wish I had a GoPro to people won't understand.
I wish I had my metas. We didn't bring our metas.
I had mine, but it was too dirty outside, right? When you were faced with fear, and I mean this real fear, because I remember the moment during that time where you were like checking to see if everybody else was in this fearful mode. How the hell did you overcome this fearful moment?
That's a good question. I don't think I ever did, if I'm being honest with you. I didn't actually overcome the fear. I remember when we pulled up to that spot and I just see the ropes. And I'm looking around to see, I'm like, does anyone else see this shit? Like, you guys see this right now? Like, I'm not the only one that sees there's ropes hanging over the side of this cliff. and they're strapping themselves in. Like, there's no way we're going down this mountain. Now, mind you, I like roller coasters, y'all. Like, I like some stuff, but there's a level of fear when it comes to like heights, and falling to your death. Like that's not my vibe. And it was one of those things where I asked everyone around me, "Hey, you not nervous? Hey, yo, you nervous?" Because I needed someone to validate that I'm not crazy right now, right? You guys all feel what I feel, that we're about to do something really crazy. And what helped me overcome the fear was the fact that I saw one by one of our teammates going down that hill. And I know some of them were scared. I asked them, and I was like, well, damn, if they're doing it, I got to do it. We got no choice. And I remember going down the mountain. Luckily, we went down at the same time. What actually helped me was we were just talking crap to each other the whole time.
I had to talk crap to you because I knew before you went down there, I knew that you had a level of like real fear, like alert was going off. And man, I'm so proud of the guys that we went with, and those guys who were listening. Man, there was a certain brotherhood that was formed that when you go through the suffering and pain of things, man, it really builds character. And I didn't understand what our co-founder was taking us through, but I'm so greatly appreciative of being able to have these obstacles that can matriculate to real life examples. We're in a business where I don't want to say fear, but maybe there's a level of fear of you maybe picking up the phone, calling people, or getting told no, and knowing that it's going to continually come, and nobody ever gets used to it. But at some point, you just face the fear, and then you just say, you know what? I got this racing heart. I got this sweaty palms, right? And this adrenaline that's pumping through me needs to be looked at as my built-in performance enhancer instead of it's the thing that's weighing me back, in a sense. Because, dude, there was so many opportunities where not only was I in a fearful moment, but I got to observe the teammates, and I would go, what? Like, nah, they're not about to make us do this, are they? Like, are you kidding me? And then all my brothers just found a way to just push through, man. And it was it wasn't nice, but we made it through it, right? So having that fear is also something that's important too, right? But turning it, how do you use it? So I would say something else that Jeff, I want to kind of put out there is that we've mentioned, so far we talked about, just recently we just talked about fear and how that's fuel and just the doubt that kind of creeps in. But one of the things that now that everything is done is now I have an opportunity to rewrite my story. I have an opportunity to rewrite how things actually affect me, because as I went through it, remember, hindsight is 2020. I'm so grateful that I was able to go through this and understand that I was acting like a victim, right? When I was going through this, right? But when we talk about rewriting how things affect you or rewriting the story and stop acting like the victim, what comes to your mind when it comes time to interrogate yourself, so that when things are done and you're rewriting that story, what comes to your mind that says, man, it wasn't that bad, or I should be telling myself this versus telling myself that?
I think I'll give you a specific example that they were telling us, because as you know, a lot of us cramped. I just talked about my cramp. And in the moment, the story in my mind was, I'm cramping because my body isn't made for this. It's not prepared for this, right? But rewriting that story also looks like, well, you could have prepared a little more. You could have been in better shape. You could have hydrated more. One of the things they had told us, like, hey, look, you're cramping. I get you're cramping, but that was part of your mission too, was to hydrate yourself. You failed the mission by not hydrating. That's why you're cramping now. And man, when that was said, I think you had a light bulb moment too, because when they said that, I was like, that's so true. Like, it was my job on the off time to rehydrate, right? And I'm not going to say I didn't take it serious, but I didn't come to that level of preparation. So I think come day 3, right, We did actually rewrite the story.
We
Man,
did.
man, did I, dude, the amount of times I woke up to get out of my little sleeping bag, my little bivvy, and pee, it was frustrating. But dude, I was a racehorse that night. It was just flowing out of me. And I knew that day on day 3, I was like, oh, I'm hydrated today. We ready to roll. And yeah, it was very different outcome. So that's my example of rewriting the story. I don't know if you got one.
I have examples, but I'm thinking now about what happened that hellish Friday, Freaky Friday. Let's just start calling it that, right? Having to wake up, and we had Overwatch, which means we had to watch something and take rotations where we got very little sleep, and we had to be someplace at 6 a.m., but we were trying to overachieve, and we got there at 5 a.m. and then having that as, thinking we're getting ahead, and then we get crushed morally because they tell us we're too early, and then they send us back up a mountain. Guys, it takes about 45 minutes at a fast pace to get up a mountain, okay? And we were all timed, and then having to go back down and do circuit training down the mountain, back to base camp, and going through the rigorous activity of that. And then the next parts I probably can't mention because it was just really intense. Just fatigue, exhaustion. As entrepreneurs, I think we fall in love with the celebrations of knowing how to say the right things. But when you're in it, I think that's where those slogans and cliches actually come from. The pain to endure, real endurance. So when I think about now when things are over, what I rewrite my story to tell myself is this: as good as I am, I got so much more room to get better. I got so much more room. And I just want to tell that to the audience that's listening, because as and I want to talk to men really quick. Men, we got to do a better job. We got to do a better job at grounding ourselves in truth and facing these fears and making sure that we have built-in security measures that allow us to respond in the moments of adversity. When I'm writing my story now is saying, you got to do more. That could be a call. That could be having more hard conversations with, business partners and teammates and new recruiting opportunities. I now understand what it goes to say this, Jeff. I'm going to give a lot of meaning to this, okay? And I say this often a lot offline, but it's not what it looks like. That's my story. It's not what it looks like. As hard as it is, we need it to be harder. Because as men, and I'm going to get back to the full audience, women included, but as men, we have to find a way to really step up our game, because we've become a bit softer in society. And I know that that's what the world wants, but I just want to challenge. I want to challenge everybody to make sure that we're rewriting our story and we're doing the right stuff, which leads me to a couple last thoughts before we wrap this thing up. Is, as you're rewriting this story, I need you to be real and admit your weak points along the way. The weak points. Jeff, I don't need you to get all, sensitive, but when it comes to rewriting and then admitting your, weak spots and being real, what does that mean throughout this process and being real? Like, what's the difference in the version of Jeff before we got to that ranch versus the version of you that exists right now?
Wasn't giving it 1,000%. Like, just overall in business and life, as a father, as a husband, because I think in the moment being there, you become so grateful too. So I think also living with an attitude of gratitude. I don't feel like we're as grateful as we can be for the lives that we live, for the things that we do. Like, my hard day is something like today. I had 8 appointments today. That was quote unquote hard. And I sat at a computer all day, and what some of these men actually have to do for a living is go protect our country. And I can't even say we got a taste of it. Like, we got we got a small little sample size of what like training looks like to
You got a
prepare.
condiment.
Yeah, to like see what and that was hell. So I think what I learned is that I really got to be grateful for what we have, what we do, the opportunity that actually lies, you know, in our hands, and also what we've been given. Man, sleeping outside on uh, uh, a hard, cold floor
You
versus
mean rocky gravel road?
versus a nice purple bed is very different. I have never looked at my bed the same. I have never looked at cuddling the same. While I was freezing my ass off, guess what I wanted? I just wanted to be the little spoon and Elizabeth to hold me.
He wanted his
And
mommy.
no, I didn't want. I wanted Elizabeth, and I didn't have that. So I think that's what I realized, is that just being more grateful and being more present in the moment, because in those moments when you're not, that's all you want. But then when you have it, you take it for granted. So I think that's what really helped me realize coming back this time around.
I love that because I want to add and I want to finish this off with two thoughts. And this is the note taking time. Is number one, there's going to be adversity. It's always going to be there, right? There's always something that we all have to do. But I want to tell our audience, number one, you need to act now. Quit overthinking. Jump in, because momentum it's going to shut doubt up fast. This whole idea of I got to learn how to do something first before I do it, that whole analysis paralysis, it's doubt's favorite hiding spot. The more you think about it, the louder something's going to get, and the more you're going to have these concrete shoes on, right? So here's a rule. If you're debating something after 5 minutes, you're probably stalling. So you need to move. Lots of opportunities and spaces where we got, shut in with that, right? So this imperfect action is going to beat planning every single time. And then my last thought, and I'll let you close this out, Jeff, is although it was very tough and you got a lot of things that you have to do right now, don't ever forget to celebrate wins and make a habit of cheering on every small victory. When we would accomplish something, like you think about Friday, Hell Day, Freaky Friday, whatever we're calling about, right? We found little pockets in the day where we got an opportunity to celebrate, right? And then what this did is that this stacked proof that doubt won't ever be able to touch. And it built our momentum along the way too, right? So most people who are listening to this without pausing then wonder why motivation dies. Well, this is the reason why. Motivation dies because you forgot to celebrate along the way. And you forgot that, you need to make a habit of saying things. In my head, I was saying those two words that I can't say here, right? Maybe you want to fist pump something like Kobe fist pump, right? And then you go like, that's what I'm talking about, Or maybe you sell a deal and maybe you want to go out to a nice meal or a restaurant. Like, it's just these simple, subtle things that turn into these grand victories. Because when you look back, again, rewriting that story, you get to see it. But if you don't celebrate it in these times, then you end up losing sight of all of it, right? So these last week has been probably the most enlightening weeks of my 40 years on planet Earth. I'm not kidding. I'm not saying that for clicks. I'm just saying that because we witnessed some real stuff. We endured, we went through some things, and we wanted to share some things. So, Jeff, I'll give you last thoughts over here. And I don't know, tell the people how you feel.
As you were saying, celebrate the small wins. I started thinking about Leilani. Leilani's potty training right now. And every single time she actually goes in her little toilet, she gets fired the hell up. And you know what me and Liz do? We get fired the hell up with, and we celebrate those little wins. And it's crazy because it's really starting to stack up. And just something as big as what we're talking about, we just did, but something so minimal, like in the grand scheme of things of life. Think about it. You don't remember being potty trained. Leilani won't either. But right now in this moment of her life, it's a big deal. So celebrating along the way can really stack some things along the way. So that's what came to my mind right now. That's my 2 cents. How I feel, I'm humbled, man. I'm humbled, but I'm also extremely excited because there's so much more in the tank. And I think I'm also excited because I ain't 40. So I got some good time on me. I'm
Keep
not
on
even
living, young boy. Keep on living.
Hell yeah. But with that being said, guys, that's episode 3, season 4. We'll see you next time. Peace.